dark tale where the stories get dark and we bring it to light. So today I'm bringing you guys 3 stories that I have with me. I'm sorry we don't have enough stories for today's episode. So if you guys would love to support the channel, I would love it if you could submit your stories to a dark tale on TikTok. Then we can tell your tales on the next live. So today we have 3 stories for you guys, and I can't wait for you to hear them together with me. Get comfortable wherever you are as we start our first story. But before that, don't forget to head on to our YT page with the same channel name, A Dark Tale. Then you will see a recorded version of today's live. And don't forget to follow our page. And if you have a story of your own, please do submit to us on TikTok, and we will bring it to light. So, if you guys got any stories, don't forget to submit down on our TikTok page. And today I told you we got 3 stories, right? And the first story, it's like open topic, so there can be anything. There's no specific theme for this topic. It's just open topic because we have only a handful of stories. And again, if you like to support the live, I don't need the money. I don't need your money. All I need is stories to continue on doing this so that I can bring you special stories. And our first story is about, it crosses the border over to Malaysia. So many of you have been to Malaysia before. And Malaysia is like, or not Malaysia, but Johor Bahru itself is like just across the border. So some people go there for a few hours. It can be like traveling to another country for 3-4 hours. I think something that other people from other countries can never relate. And so we have a story here, and it's just a very simple story lah. So let's just get straight into it. And whoever who just joined my live, thanks for joining my live. If you want to hear ghost stories, stay tuned. We have a couple of ghost stories in tune for you. So let's go on with our first story for today. So this happened when I decided to ride my bike into Malaysia to get a haircut at B Point. Normally, I would enter through Woodlands checkpoint since it's much closer. But that day, the jam was insane. Cars were barely moving and I didn't want to waste hours waiting. So I made a last minute decision to enter through Tuas Second Link instead. The problem was that it was my first time using that route. So after clearing immigration, I was completely unfamiliar with the roads. Everything looked the same. And I had no idea where I was going. Thankfully, I had Waze on my phone. So I followed the navigation and continued riding. For almost about 30 minutes, everything seemed normal. Then I reached the exit that Waze told me to take. I remember stopping my bike right before the turn. The entire road ahead was pitch black. Not dim, not poorly lit, pitch black, no buildings and no sign of life. I sat there for a while, debating whether I should continue to ride inside. Go take the exit. The thought of getting robbed crossed my mind more than once. But I already come this far and I didn't know any alternative route. So eventually, I took a deep breath and I slowly rode in. The deeper I went, the darker it became. My bike's headlight barely illuminated the road ahead. Every shadow looked like someone standing there. Every rustle in the bushes made my heart jump. Then in the distance, I spotted a light. It wasn't bright enough to illuminate the whole area, but seeing some light, it gave me comfort. At least there was someone there. At least I wasn't alone. So I slowly made my way towards the light, and as I got closer, I realized it was coming from a small roadside food stall. It looked like one of those tiny pushcart people used to sell food. So if you went across the border before, I think you will see those like food push carts where people open the shop, like selling Ramly burger and everything, right? So that's what he saw. So it looked like one of those tiny push carts people used to sell food. Just as I arrived, it started to drizzle. And since there was nowhere else to park, since there was nowhere else, I used the shop as a shelter. So I parked my bike and stood near the cooking area to avoid getting wet. The place felt strangely quiet. No customers, no vehicles, no sounds. Nothing. Just the drizzle hitting the metal roof. As I looked around, trying to figure out where everyone was, I suddenly turned around and I screamed. An old lady was standing right behind me, completely still. I haven't heard any footstep. I haven't heard anyone approach. 1 second nobody was there, and then the next second she was. My heart nearly stopped. Ayo, so this is what he said like, ayo, makcik, you scared me And then I started laughing. You never make a sound, but the old lady simply smiled. She didn't say anything. Feeling awkward, I shifted slightly to give her more room under the shelter, since it was a small pushcart, right? So he moved to the side and asked the lady to join him in the shelter. She didn't say anything. So that's when I started noticing something strange. Her movements weren't normal. Everything she did felt delayed. Almost like someone pretending to be human. After a few moments, she asked me if I wanted something to eat. I politely declined. She asked again, but I shook my head. No, thank you, he said. Then she asked again and again and again, but every single time, the same smile on her face. Like asking him like, take this food, take this food, take this food, but smiling. Eventually, I got irritated. So I said, no, I don't want. But her smile widened. Then she said, it's okay, just take. Her voice sounded different, now lower and rougher. This food free, just take. I want you to take. I immediately declined again. The old lady's smile didn't disappear. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, and a voice that sent down chills down my spine. She said, ambil, while smiling. Ambil meaning take. At that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The entire time we had been talking, she had never blinked once. Not once. Her eyes remained wide open, unnaturally wide, staring directly at me. I suddenly felt a horrible feeling in my stomach. Every instinct in my body was screaming that something was wrong. But trying not to panic, I forced a smile and I said I wanted to check on my bike because it just rained, so I wanted to check my bike. But she didn't respond. She just kept smiling and staring at me. I walked calmly towards my bike. The moment my hand touched the handlebars, I started the engine, and the moment it started, I twisted throttle and I sped off as far as I can. I didn't look back, not at first. I just wanted to reach the main road as fast as possible. Anywhere that there is people. And just as I was approaching, leading back towards the highway, my curiosity got the better of me. I glanced into my side mirror and turned back. And I wish I hadn't. The old lady was standing exactly where I had left her, far away, yet somehow I could see her clearly. She was waving to me while smiling. Her eyes were wide open, far wider than any human eyes should be, and that horrible, horrible smile. I didn't stop riding until I reached a brightly lit petrol station. A few days later, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. Part of me wondered if fear had simply gotten the better of me. Maybe I just imagined it. I felt so bad for the makcik as I just walked away from her, took the bike and walked away from her in the middle of the forest. So maybe there was a logical explanation. And then I decided to return back to the place. This time in broad daylight. I followed the exact same route, the same exit, following down the same path I did. But when I arrived, my stomach dropped. There was no food stall, No shelter, no lights, nothing. Only an abandoned pushcart sitting by the roadside. Its metal frame was rusted. The roof was partially collapsed. Basically, it looked like it had been abandoned for years. I stood there staring at it, unable to process what I was seeing. Because I clearly remembered a functioning stall. I remembered the light, the cooking area, how I took shelter from the rain, and most of all, I remembered the old lady. To this day, I still don't know who or what I met that night. But whenever I cross Tuas Second Link after dark, I make sure one thing. If I ever see a lone light shining from a roadside stall in the middle of the nowhere, I keep riding. So that was our first story of crossing the border and going to Malaysia. So Malaysia is very different from Singapore in a way that the roads are bigger, there's more wide open spaces. Singapore, there's a lot of, it's like a concrete jungle. There's high-rise building everywhere you go. But in Malaysia, it's slightly different. There's kampong, there's wide open spaces, there's abandoned roads, there's... Honestly, I've been to JB a lot of times in my life. And I can tell you, if you look closely, especially if you go to JB at night, there are so many cemeteries everywhere. And you can be eating in the food stall just there, but when you turn behind, you can see the headstone of the grave right behind you. So, if you are in JB again, be careful lah. But of course, if you are going there to just eat and relax, I think it should be okay because I mean you're not disturbing those graves over there, right? So that was the story of going to JB, and the second story we have is also going overseas, and it's also going to JB. So I chose this story so that we have something that follows a bit of a theme at least, which is the going abroad theme, and in this case, JB. So honestly, for me, I've been to JB I think countless of times to go do some shopping, to go pump some petrol. Yeah, so yeah, I've been there a lot of times, and if you look closely, like I said, I've been to those kampong areas, and yeah, you will see it's sometimes almost pitch black. And now coming over to our next story, it's about someone who got their heart broken and went to JB for vacation. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the second story, because you know when you're heartbroken, you do things impulsively. And same for this story, also she was impulsive, and this was her story. So this was her story, okay? So you know how people always tell you not to make impulsive decisions when you're heartbroken? So she learned that the hard way. About 6 months ago, my ex and I broke up. It wasn't a clean split. It was one of those messy, drawn out arguments that leave you feeling completely drained and suffocated. I just needed to escape my own head. So last minute, I just packed one single bag and headed down to the terminal. I hopped on a bus straight across the causeway into Johor Bahru. I figured a quick 2-day, 1-night solo gateway in JB would be enough to distract me, since it was a last minute trip. I scrambled on all the apps, tried to find a cheap hotel to just stay and relax. You know, I wanted to get away from Singapore. Then I came across this room. In the photos, the room looked amazing, modern, clean, aesthetic, great reviews. But the red flag started the second the Grab dropped me off the building. The moment I looked up, my stomach sank. The entire estate looked completely abandoned and run down. Half the windows in the complex were shattered. The paint was peeling like old skin, and it looked more like a construction site halted in the 90s than a residential building. I almost U-turn around there, but I was exhausted. So I forced myself into this dimly lit lift and go up to my floor. So I went to reception, took the key, and I went up to the floor. When the lift door opened, the corridor felt instantly different. It was heavy. The smell faintly of damp concrete and rot. The second I stepped out, every single hair on my body stood on end. You know that instinct where your body literally screams for you to run? That was happening to me. Everything in my gut was telling me to turn back and get a proper hotel. But I kept telling myself, it's just for one night. You are broke, you're tired, don't be over dramatic. So thankfully, when I reached the unit and unlocked the door, a wave of relief hit me. The inside of the apartment was exactly like the pictures. It was clean, bright, and completely sealed off from the creepy corridor outside. I sighed, dropped my bags, and started exploring the place, trying to shake off the bad vibes. That's when I heard 3 distinct knocks on the door. Assuming it was either the neighbor or some maintenance worker, I walked over and swung the door open. I didn't even think to check the peephole. The long dark corridor was completely empty. There was no sound of footsteps running away, no door closing, just dead silence. Weird, I muttered to myself. I figured it was just maybe some prank or the rattling of some old door. So I just locked and walked back in. Later did I know, by opening that door without looking, I had indirectly invited something in. I didn't plan on heading out for the night, so I showered, changed into some comfortable clothes and settled into the bed to watch a show on my laptop. That's when the disturbances started. First, a loud clatter ding, echoed from the kitchen. I went out of the bed and found a metal spoon had somehow flown from the countertop and was vibrating on the floor tiles. I shrugged it off, picked it up and went back to the bedroom. A few minutes later, the wall-mounted TV, which I haven't turned on before, suddenly blasted to life with loud static noise before snapping off again. By this time, my anxiety was creeping back up, but exhaustion took over. I crawled over the covers, kept my laptop playing to drown out the silence, and naturally dozed off. A few hours later, I woke up in the dead of night. I was still half asleep, groggy, when I felt a sudden shift in the mattress. The foot of the bed slowly depressed, sinking down as if someone heavy had just sat down right by my feet. My heart started beating against my chest. From my blanket, I slowly peeked over the edge of the blanket, looking at the bottom of my bed. Nothing, it was just empty space. So I tried to squeeze my eyes shut and force myself back to sleep, desperate to ignore whatever was happening. But the air in the room grew very, very cold. I tried to shift my weight to roll over, but suddenly I couldn't move. Panic set in. I was in total sleep paralysis. I forced my eyelids open and my breath caught in my throat. Standing right at the foot of my bed was a massive towering black shadow. It had no face, no distinct features, just a void of pure dark shadow that seemed to swallow the light in the room. I was trying to scream, to cry out for help, but no voice came. I was completely trapped in my own body. Then the shadow figure shifted. From its standing position, it suddenly dropped down onto all fours. It started creeping towards me, moving with a sickening spider-like motion. It got closer and closer, going right over my chest. Just as its dark, freezing energy was about to touch my face, the paralysis snapped. A blood-curdling scream tore out my throat. Ah! I threw the blankets off. scrambled off the bed and ran out of the apartment in my pajamas. I didn't grab my shoes, my bags, or my passport. I just sprinted down the stairs and into the lobby, bursting into the reception area, sobbing and hyperventilating. I practically begged the night shift receptionist to help me. To her credit, she didn't even question me. Seeing how genuinely terrified I was, she processed a room change almost immediately, giving me a key card to completely different block. Thankfully, the second room was peaceful and I managed to survive the rest of the night. The next morning, while I was collecting my luggage from the original room, I ran into one of the housekeeping staff in the corridor. I couldn't help myself. I asked her straight out if there was something wrong with that specific unit. The cleaner looked around nervously, lowered her voice, and told me the truth. A few years ago, a young lady had took her own life inside that exact room. And it was after a terrible breakup. She told me some guests stay there and don't feel a thing, but others see her. And I guess I was just the unlucky ones. Needless to say, I checked out an hour later, took the first bus back home, and I haven't been back to JB since for a staycation. So that was our second story about the hotel staff. About someone going to hotel and having a vacation in JB. She was heartbroken, and I think maybe, when you're heartbroken, people say you're more tend to invite these kind of things because they know that you are in your weakest point. Because during that time you are probably sad, angry, a mix of emotions flowing through you at that exact moment. Then when you go overseas and those things feel you, that's when you get attacked the most. And anyway, thanks for people who are staying in the live. Thanks for joining the live. I really appreciate you guys joining the live. Bad heartbreak followed by a scary ghost disturbances. Chalat say. Yeah. Chalat indeed. So, anyway, if you hear background noises of cats meowing, that's actually a cat meowing and not any sound effect. So, yeah, when you go overseas, right, I would again recommend to go and check out reviews of any room you're going to stay in or any place, because I have my own personal experience of going to Port Dickson. The pictures show amazing place. The room was nice. The view was amazing. But then when we went there, the whole place was abandoned except for that one room that looked very nice. So the view was nice. It was by the beach side, but the whole building was abandoned. And if you guys want to hear that story, then maybe I'll tell that in the next live, because quite a few interesting things as well happened in that trip. So I can tell the story maybe in the next live, my own personal story. And for now, we will come to the final story of the night. This is the last story that we have. Again, if you guys are here, do follow my YT, which is a ducktail. You can DM me your stories over here, and then you can go over to YT and watch the recorded version of this. So anyway, the third story is something very, very different. It's not about going to JB. It's not about the usual huntings. It's about an entity, or maybe they call it Jinn. So this Jinn, it's a very unique, not a unique Jinn, but it's a very specific Jinn that usually tend to be attracted to ladies lah. So if you're a lady and you're watching this is something that you should listen to. And if you do have these kind of symptoms, go and get yourself checked, because not everything is spiritual, but when it is, you better get it checked as soon as possible. So let's go straight into our last story for tonight. And this person has said that, like, hey guys, I'm sending you this story because I've been watching your channel, and I'm telling you this story because you're a small channel. I'm just kidding. I just added in myself. But so after seeing your recent video, I finally gathered the courage to talk about what happened to me. People always talk about haunted house or ghosts or whatever, but this was something very different. It was personal, and this entity is not there to scare me, but it wanted to be with me. So without further ado, let's go for our last story for tonight. If you guys are here, do like the page, and if you have your stories, please do share. And let's go straight into the story, okay? So for the longest time, I was just single. I desperately wanted to be in a relationship, but every single time I met a decent guy, I would find some ridiculous reason to just reject him. If he chewed too loudly, I was out. If he wore the wrong shoes, out. But all this that happened, I never blamed myself, of course. I just rolled my eyes and told my friends that all men were exactly the same. I had no idea that something invisible was actively whispering into my ears, sabotaging my life so I would always be alone. Then I met this guy. I would just short form his name lah. I met Fa. Fa wasn't my usual type. He was deeply pious, gentle, and this incredibly calm aura. I'm not a bad girl by any means, but I'm definitely not the most religious person either. Yet there was this undeniable attraction between us. The feeling was completely mutual because Fa was a proper practicing Muslim. He didn't want to play games or date around. After just a few weeks of talking, he straight up asked for my hand in marriage because he wanted to keep everything halal. Halal meaning he wanted to keep everything proper lah. I was completely taken aback, but my heart said yes. I told him I wanted to get to know him just a little bit more before formally introducing him to my parents. This is where the nightmare began. The very night after I agreed to the marriage, I had a dream. In the dream, I was lying in my own bed and a man was resting beside me. I couldn't make out his facial features. It was just like looking at a silhouette, but he was incredibly loving to me. He held me, stroked my hair, and whispered a name into my ear over and over again. I will just shorten this name to T. Okay. He promised he would always be by my side, that no one would ever love me the way he did. I woke up feeling deeply unsettled. It didn't feel like a normal dream. It felt physically real. It didn't stop there. The dreams became a nightly occurrence. Within a week, the entity calling himself T started becoming intimate with me in the dreams. It sounds crazy to say this out loud, but I actually started looking forward to going to sleep. At the same time, a dark cloud settled over my real life. I suddenly began to lose all interest in Fa. Every time he texted me, I felt irritated. I started making excuses to avoid him, pushing him away entirely. One night, I came home really late after work, exhausted. I went straight to the bathroom to take a shower. The bathroom was steamy, so I wiped a section of the mirror to clear the fog. At that moment, my heart completely stopped. Right behind my shoulder was a tall, pitch black shadow figure. I whipped around so fast I nearly fell, but the bathroom was empty. I ran to bed terrified and fell fell asleep. That night, T appeared in my dream again. This time his voice wasn't gentle. It was heavy, echoing inside my head. So this is what he said.
Don't be afraid of me. You belong to me, not him. You belong to me, not him.
The next morning, I woke up gasping, only to see a text from Far asking to meet up. I felt completely emotionally dead towards him, but out of guilt, I agreed. We sat at a quiet cafe, and I was just staring at my coffee, completely checked out. That's when Far stopped talking, looked directly into my eyes, and sighed. What he said next gave me chills. I know you've been distancing yourself, Far said softly, and I need to tell you something. I've never mentioned this because it scares people, but since I was a child, I have the ability to see things. I have the third eye, and every single time I look at you, I see a dark shadow attached to you. It follows you everywhere, and this is a jinn. I stared at him, completely taken aback at first. My modern logical brain thought it was nonsense. But as Far kept talking, describing this entity, everything clicked into place. That night's dream, the sudden hatred for Far, the shadow in the mirror, so everything started to click. My voice trembled as I realized the horrifying truth. I wasn't just having dreams. I was being violated. Far told me we had to fight back. He urged me to start performing my daily prayers again and gave me specific verses from the Quran to recite before going to bed. But that night was the worst night of my life. The entity realized it has been exposed. The moment I closed my eyes, I was slammed into a violent episode of sleep paralysis. I was looking at the faceless entity, but his eyes were now burning, glowing red. It pinned me down and wrapped its hands around my throat, literally strangling me. I woke up, gasping for oxygen. Tears streaming down my face. Every time I drift back to sleep, the strangling would happen all over again. I became terrified to close my eyes. As I forced myself to get closer to Far and focus on my prayers, the bad luck now escalated. It felt like the entity was throwing a temper tantrum. I would put my phone on the table, turn around for 2 seconds, and when I turned back, the phone would be gone. I searched the whole house, panicked, and then suddenly find it sitting right back on the center of the table where I've checked many times before. My wallet disappeared and reappeared the same way as all my items. I told Far everything. He realized the entity was stubborn and attached to me. He recommended I begin self-ruqyah. So ruqyah is like a spiritual cleansing for yourself lah. Other people can do it on you as well. It's basically like not exorcism but of some sort in a way. So some of the ways that people do ruqyah is they take some water, they read over it, and either they drink it, wash their face with it, or maybe if it's a big water, then they shower themselves with it lah. So what I did was I did it repeatedly, night after night after night, even when I felt exhausted and wanted to give up. But slowly the terrifying grip began to loosen. The shadow in the mirror disappeared and the dreams became less frequent. Then came the final dream. I had one last dream of T. He didn't look loving anymore. He looked desperate and angry. He lunged at me in the dream, trying to force his way back into my space, screaming that I was his. But this time something snapped. I stood my ground. I channeled all my fear into anger and shouted, "No, you have no power over me. Get out." I woke up to complete silence. The heavy weight in my bedroom was entirely gone. After it was over, I did a lot of research and discovered the exact term for what had hunted me. A Jinn Ashiq. A lustful, possessive spirit that falls in love with humans, sabotages their real-world relationship, and sleeps beside them in their dreams. Thankfully, that was the last of the disturbances. Today, I'm happily married to Fa. His patience, his faith, and his ability to see what was truly hurting me quite literally saved my life. So to anyone out there who feels like they're constantly sabotaging their own happiness or having vivid, reoccurring intimate dreams with stranger, get yourself checked as soon as possible. As the longer the attachment is, the harder it is to get rid of it. So that was our last story of tonight, where the person was, the jinn that was attached to her was a jinn called Jinn Ashiq. So I did some research, and Jinn Ashiq is not a real thing, but it's more of like a name that they call a jinn that has lust over humans. So technically, jinns are a bit are like demons lah, and they are quite jealous of humans. So some people say that it's not love, but it is a way for them to destroy humans' life. So if you have this kind of dreams, go and get it checked ASAP lah. But some people have reported it being like the best relationship or they had in their life. But again, everything that a jinn does is temporary, and eventually you will have to snap out of it. So, of course, don't dwell into this kind of things lah. Yeah, if you have an attachment with spirits, you have an attachment with jinns, don't linger over it for a very long time, because it won't benefit you in any way. So that was the end of our stories, of our 3 stories that we had. I hope you guys enjoyed the 3 stories. Again, don't forget to check us out over at YT, or if you are on YT, check us over, sorry. Check our TikTok channel, and do follow any of the platforms that you see online. And whoever who have been watching the live, thank you for watching the live. If you can't join the live, go to a recorded version and watch it. Don't forget to like and comment down below. Any feedback is of course helpful for us, and since this is a small channel that has been starting, I would like to thank everyone for the great support that I had. No marketing again. We are at our 6th episode for today that is posted on YT lah. We've been doing this on TikTok for a longer time, but officially posting it on YT, this is our 6th episode. And again, I really appreciate every one of you. Thanks for joining this live, and if you have a ghost story, don't forget that we will bring your dark tales to light. And thank you everyone again, and I will catch you guys in the next live next week on Wednesday, 11 o'clock. If I can't be there on 11 o'clock, then maybe 11:30. So yes, again, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed today's live like I did, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.